The SEC spring meetings begin today in Destin, Florida, with no shortage of important debates on the docket. Among the expected topics, an 8 or 9 game conference schedule and potential SEC-only playoff. Commissioner Greg Sankey calls the latter idea blue sky thinking. It's his answer to the impasse of the CFP expansion talks. And don't forget about the simmering Nick Sabin and Jimbo Fisher feud we saw not too long ago, along with those NIL-related discussions there in the conference. So one brain, it wasn't enough. Joining us now here, college football reporter for 24/7 Sports, Brandon Marcello there in Destin for those spring meetings. And Brandon, when you look at it here, a lot is on the table. You actually wrote about this on CBSSports.com and 24/7 Sports. Starting here with that 9-game conference schedule, what do you expect those conversations to be like today?
Well, listen, the SEC back in the fall during some fall meetings came up and narrowed things down from about 40 plans to 2. And those 2 plans is an 8-game conference schedule with 1 permanent opponent and 7 rotating opponents. And the other's a 9-game schedule. And that one is going to be the favorite heading to SEC spring meetings to potentially be voted on and approved as early as this week. I'm not so sure that we will get a final decision, but the SEC is moving toward a 9-game football schedule in the SEC that would have a rotation of 3 permanent opponents for everybody and 6 rotating opponents every other year. What this means is that divisions in the SEC East and the SEC West, are likely gone starting in 2025 when Texas and Oklahoma join the conference.
I want to get back to that a little bit later about Texas and Oklahoma there, but it seems like the SEC continues to try to be the powerhouse, not only by also maybe thinking about an SEC playoff. Is that rubbing some programs wrong, or are some people high on that? What do you think? Are you hearing about that lately?
Well, listen, Greg Sankey back in the fall, and a little bit earlier than that, after Texas and OU joined the SEC, asked his ADs, asked his presidents, and everybody involved, listen, let's think big here. What would the SEC look like if for some reason we didn't have to worry about the college football playoff or really any other conferences? Think of every possible scenario out there and don't let anything hold you back. And one of the scenarios out there that was discussed was an SEC playoff, one that would probably involve about 8 of the 16 teams in the postseason, one that'd be completely separate from the college football playoff. Now, of course, this is not even a proposal, so to speak, just an idea. But the fact that they're even discussing this shows you that they're ready to do whatever it takes to make the SEC the strongest conference in college football, but also be able to preserve it and make it stronger in whatever this new college football landscape looks like in 5 to 10 years. Because as of right now, college football playoff expansion has been put on pause. And I think Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, people close to him tell me that, he worked for 2 years on the college football playoff working group to come up with this 16-team college football playoff. He worked in secret. He kept it quiet. He did everything that he was asked of from him, from the FBS commissioners and presidents. And he presents this idea, one that was all really needed was a rubber stamp. And instead of the college football playoff, taps the brakes and decide we're not really going to discuss this and approve it. And I'm sure that there's probably some hurt feelings there. I mean, listen, no one wants to waste 2 years of their life for something that they believe is just going to be rubber stamped, and it isn't. And listen, there's a lot of hurt feelings in that room, in the college football playoff room with commissioners, because the SEC added Texas and OU in the middle of the night in late July of last year. And so I think we're seeing emotion mixed with businesses here a little bit. And Greg Sankey had to go back to his own silo, go to his own bunker after all this and go, all right, so whatever I just worked on with the college football playoff wasn't something that they want to look at really right now. What can I do in the SEC that's some big sky, blue sky thinking, as he says, that could really put us on top, but also do something different that no one else has really done? And, their own playoff is something that was mentioned. Is it realistic? I don't think so right now, but the SEC is throwing all kinds of ideas on the walls here this week at SEC spring meetings.
So that playoff may not be a thing of the future, but it's safe to say Texas and Oklahoma around 2025, that is a thing that's coming to the conference. I mean, that conversation, what will that be like today, knowing that 2 schools, of course, coming to this powerhouse? What are you expecting to hear from some of those programs?
Well, a lot of that is going to be situated around scheduling. And what's really interesting is I was told going into this week that no representatives from Texas and OU will be represented here at SEC spring meetings, which, listen, this day and age of technology, listen, I'm doing this via Zoom. Texas and OU could jump on a Zoom call and vote on something if they had to. But of course, I'm sure Texas and OU's reps have been filled in and told, hey, we're discussing scheduling. This is what we're looking at. Are you on board with this? So I think that if there was a vote taken this week, the SEC would feel comfortable, but it's a matter of getting everybody on board. Listen, the coaches here, I'm told, are pretty much split down the middle, along with the ADs, about whether there should be a 9-game or 8-game schedule. In the end, I believe from talking to people here in the SEC that 9 games is inevitable because it's what's going to strengthen the conference and also put in a better position for whatever the college football playoff postseason looks like. And what that means is it's going to get rid of divisions. And I think that's kind of sticking under the skin of some folks here, the idea of getting away from those traditional divisions and also being able to claim on the recruiting trail, hey, we were SEC East champions in this year or SEC West champions. Not going to be able to do that anymore.
So there's a lot of business at hand this week, as you mentioned, those meetings going throughout Friday. But there's a little something that happened not too long ago, with Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban, a little back and forth between the two. I have to think that's probably the topic that everybody has their attention on. I mean, do you expect these guys to speak? What are you expecting from these two once you have them in the same room together?
I think there will be a lot of poking and prodding among their colleagues when they get all the 14 coaches in the same room. Everybody tends to kind of rib each other in there anyway because it's the first time they're together really in the last few months. And that will certainly be on their minds going in there. I don't think Jimbo and Nick Saban are going to share any pleasantries. And I know that's just like a cliche thing to say, but I doubt anything beyond, hey, Nick, hey, Jimbo, will be said. We will certainly be asking about it when we speak to coaches here later today. Interestingly enough, we're scheduled to speak to Nick Saban, I think right before they go in for meetings in the mid-morning. But I'm really looking forward to talking to Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss coach. He talks at 5 o'clock when meetings end. So we'll make sure to prod him and go, hey, what happened in that meeting? What was it like? Where was Jimbo sitting? Where was Nick sitting? And how much NIL did you guys talk? And listen, that's a huge conversation here anyway. As we all know, college football is going through a massive change right now. Coaches aren't happy with some of the lack of regulation around some things, especially NIL collectives and boosters being involved. And so on a serious subject, that is going to dominate conversations here. I'm just not so sure the SEC is really going to be able to do anything because it's a national issue at this point.
Brandon, look, the only thing we want you to come away with is that whole conversation between Fisher and Sabin and also Lane Kiffin looking in on these three. That's all we want to hear from you from these meetings throughout the weekend. All right, my friend. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
I just want to see them run down the beach here in Destin like Rocky and Apollo and just get along again.
Yeah, that won't be happening. I can guarantee you that before it even happens. That will not be a thing there. All right, Brandon Marcello, as always, appreciate it, my friend from 24/7 Sports. Let's take a look at the odds when it comes to the SEC and also maybe Bama and maybe a Texas A&M. When you look at how it might stand out in these conferences and take a look at it, if we got the odds. There it is. There it is. Just got to wait a little bit. Taking a look at that title game, of course, Alabama the favorite there with Georgia right behind them. And then you see Jimbo Fisher at plus 16 to 1. And then Ole Miss following LSU as well. It's not wide open. It's never been. Alabama still the favorite, but Georgia, of course, the national champs right behind the Crimson Tide.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.